In this video, I'm going to cover the different teams that can be found in Flames of War. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about what they can do. That'll be for future episodes, such as going over movement, shooting, assault. Then we can cover special rules that will come into play with these teams. So this video is more of just an introduction of what teams are available for the Flames of War game. The different teams are tank teams, motorcycle reconnaissance teams, transport teams, gun teams, infantry teams, command teams, warrior teams, and independent teams. And so what I'm going to do next is just go a little bit over each of these teams individually and kind of cover a little bit about what they can do. So let's head to our first team. Alright, the first team we're going to look at are tank teams. Their primary purpose, as described in the book, is to shoot the enemy. I got some examples here, which tank. You can see pretty much these are tanks. You know, your Shermans, your EZH, your M10s. But also, the Priest is considered a tank. These anti-aircraft are considered a tank for game purposes, and so are these reconnaissance vehicles, these scout cars. So, tanks just doesn't mean tank. It's some sort of vehicle, and its main purpose, from like what they describe in the book, is to destroy the enemy. What I'm going to do here shortly is put a stat line down when I talk about it, but one of the things I want to go over before I do that is that there are fully tracked vehicles and vehicles that are not fully tracked. So, for example, this one here is fully tracked. So the track goes all the way around. This one is not fully tracked, it's a half track, and this one's wheeled. And it'll describe in the stat line of the vehicle, which I will get to shortly, about how you tell what is what on each of these. So if they're a fully tracked vehicle, which would be this top row up here, they're given a rating for movement of standard tank, light tank, slow tank, and very slow tank. So there's 4 movement rates for those. And again, those will be covered more when we get to movement video, not in this one. This is just more covering what teams are available. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these off and I'm going to put a stat line down so you can see how vehicles and other things too, but we'll go over the vehicles first, how they're statted out. So when I talk about this next section, it's going to make more sense. So straight from the rule book, I'll try to zoom in right there. It's a stat line, and this is for a M4A1 Sherman. It says right here. Let's see if I can get that over. There we go. So M4A1 Sherman, standard tank right there. It tells you its movement rate. And to kind of let you know, a standard tank is your normal. Most tanks are standard, and that means they can move, as long as there's no terrain, bother them or anything like that, 12 inches. So this tank can move 12 inches on the gaming table. Now it's also given armor ratings, front, side, and top. The front armor is usually your strongest armor. Your side and rear armor are the same. So if they shoot from the rear, it's going to be the same as the side. And this is thinned to save weight because they still want the tanks to be mobile. So if they thicken the armor on the side as they do on the front, the tank is just going to be a slug out there. It's not going to have very good mobility. So they have to take some of the weight off. And so they took it off the side and the rear. And then your top armor. And the side armor is used against side shots, and also aircraft can come in with their machine guns and cannons, and that goes against the side armor. Top armor is normally 0, 1, or 2. That's about it. In our armor rating, it's going to be from a 0 to 16. 0 being the worst armor, 16 being the best. And that's your protection against shooting. And we'll get more into that when we get to the shooting parts. They could also have just a dash. Instead of the armor rating, it's just the dash across there. And I'll get in just a minute I'll get to what that is. Your top armor protects against when infantry comes in and assaults the vehicle. So you're going to use your top armor against that. Also against when artillery bombardment comes down. Artillery comes down and hits the top of the tank. And also, aircraft can also have what's bombs and rockets. So if the aircraft uses bombs or rockets, it's going against the top armor. Now, fully armored vehicles will not have a dash across here. So there's no dash, so this is a armored vehicle. If there was a dash, it'd be unarmored. That's the difference between those two as far as how you tell. So this top part here, front, side, top, that's this first line up here. Now, open top vehicles have a top armor of 0, so this is not. And that just means that there's a large opening on the top, or have rubber tires that could disable the vehicle. So this is probably a top armor 0. Same with these. And unless they give some other protection, and again it'll say up here. And of course, that will not be an open-topped vehicle. And if they have a dash, they're unarmored. So we got fully armored, numbers all the way across. Open-topped, 0, and unarmored, dashes. An example of an unarmored vehicle would be a Jeep. It's going to offer really not that much protection at all. Alright, now, weapons, which is this bottom line. And so you can see this one's going to be using the M3 75mm gun. So this is just our basic Sherman, which is this little dude right here. And so they're talking about this main gun right there. This is its range. This is the maximum distance it can shoot, and they give it in inches and centimeters. And you don't play one, or you don't play both of them. You decide, are you going to play inches or are you going to play centimeters when you play the game? So you can't interchange in the middle of the game. This is rate of fire, so it gets 2 dice. That could change though if the vehicle moves, which again we'll get to that in another video. But ROF, rate of fire, it's going to have 2 dice. Anti-tank 10. So if the tank has 10 or better, like 11, 12, up to 16, this can't even penetrate it. Can't even do anything to that tank. And its firepower is 3+. And what firepower is, if the person fails their armor save, so you penetrated, they failed their armor save, if you roll a 3 or higher, you basically destroy the vehicle. And again, that will be taken care of in shooting. But this one's the different one. This is the lower the number, the better, because you want to roll that or higher. So if it's a 1+, if it penetrates, the vehicle's dead. If it's a 5+, you have to roll a 5 or a 6 to destroy that vehicle. And again, we'll get to that. Over here, it shows other weapons has as a coaxial machine gun, which is in here. A hole-mounted machine gun. A 50 caliber machine gun. It can shoot smoke, and it has stabilizers. So this is the special rules for this particular tank. Other tanks will have advantages or disadvantages listed in here in other weapons. So I'm not going to go into that right now, just kind of let you know that this is all about what that tank can do. Here's the name, its movement, armor front, side, top, what gun it uses, how far it can shoot, maximum distance, how many dice it's going to roll, how much punch it has to get through armor, how much of a chance it has once it penetrates to destroy the vehicle, and any special weapons or extra things or advantages or disadvantages are listed there. So that's kind of going through the tank teams there. Next, we're going on to motorcycle reconnaissance teams. Alright, I don't have any motorcycle reconnaissance teams, so I'm just going to use the example here from a book. And basically, they're mounted on these fast-moving vehicles, so they can get around the board. It's motorcycles, or it could also be Jeeps. So don't think just because it says motorcycle that it's only motorcycles. It could possibly be Jeeps. And again, when you build your army, it's going to tell you what you're going to use. They could be small, so you can see that's just kind of a small base, or a larger size base. And when you buy the model, it'll give you the base you need. So you don't have to go, ooh, which one is it? It'll come if you buy this one, it's going to come with this base. If you buy this one, it's going to come with that base. They're mainly used for support, so they're not going to be out there heading out and just boom boom by themselves. They're going to be supporting maybe armored vehicles or infantry. They're fast and they're generally well armed. So this one, I have a feeling they probably got machine guns on them. And also with these reconnaissance teams, they can dismount and now they become infantry teams. So you kind of got a little combo, so they can race out where they need to, and then they can get off their motorcycles and become reconnaissance teams. So this one is a submachine gun team. If they dismount, they become a submachine gun team. This one's a mortar team. When they dismount, they become a mortar team. And it's a machine gun team. When they dismount, they become a machine gun team. So that's it for motorcycle reconnaissance teams. Now we're going to head to transport teams. Alright, these are some examples of some transport teams. And their main purpose is to just move other teams around the battlefield. And that could be infantry, they can tow artillery or move artillery around, and other things like that. And it doesn't say specifically who they could take, because sometimes they're dedicated to a certain team. Like if they're bought with the artillery, they will only transport the artillery and the artillery teams. Some examples could be armored half-tracks, so that'd be these two. You can have Jeeps. This is used for towing artillery around. So it's a tractor used for that. And they have the same characteristics tanks, so they have the armor rating, their movement, and stuff like that. But generally, they don't have that many weapons. They're mainly just move stuff around, stuff gets off. And once they're not being used, they're generally not on the battlefield. They're just taken off the battlefield. Germany's a little different, but we won't get into that right now. But if my guys are in this vehicle's on the table, once they unload, it's taken off. If this is used to tow a piece of artillery, let me get it up here where you can see it. So these two will be on the table. But once they're done towing where they want to go, this is taken off the table and the artillery piece is left. So in general, your transports are only on the table when they are being used. Otherwise, they're just off to the side. So that's a little bit about transports. Next, we're going to go to gun teams. These are examples of some gun teams. And from the book, they say gun teams are generally weapons used to fight the enemy at a distance. It could be like machine guns, mortars, anti-tank guns, rockets, and artillery. And they can be from like small bases all the way up to the large bases. So it just depends upon the weapon. And again, when you buy the weapon, like if you bought this, it comes with that base. If you buy these, it comes with this base. So again, it's not guessing, it's going to tell you or show you. There is a difference between these two gun teams. So like these two are different to these. These are considered man-packed gun teams. And there are some rules for man-packed gun teams, so that's going to be very important to remember. Man-packed gun teams are basically, can these guys pick up the pieces and run? Yeah, they can pick up their machine gun and run with it. They can pick up their mortar and run with it and move like infantry. There's no way these guys are going to pick up this gun and run with it, or pick up that gun and run with it. They have to push it. This one they have to have that big tractor. This tractor is going to come in and pull it. There's just no way they're going to push that around. So that's the difference. It's very important you remember the difference between man-packed and a regular gun team, but these are all considered gun teams. It's just they will have little special rules. So that's it for gun teams. I'm going to move on now to infantry teams. Alright, this is just two examples of some infantry teams. And they're either on foot or horseback. So remember, these guys are not your machine guns, your mortars. Those are man-packed gun teams. So it could be a rifle team, a rifle machine gun team, and it'll tell you what they are. Germans got a lot of rifle machine gun teams, rifle/MG, and they'll run around in a base like this, and they're considered infantry. Bazooka teams, so we got a little bazooka here on this team, and it's on a small base. Germany does a little differently with their bazookas, but so infantry, bazooka, rifle, bazooka, rifle machine gun. Also cavalry. Some units were still using horseback, and it'll tell you cavalry or whatever, it'll tell you. So those are your basic infantry teams, which these will be different than the man-packed gun teams. It gets a little confusing. I'm just making sure I specify that right now so you kind of get it in your head. Alright, next we're going to move to command teams. Here are some examples of some command teams. And these are not all the examples that are out there. These are just a few that I threw out there to show you. Generally, they're made up of an officer, their assistant, and a messenger or signaler. And that's not always true, because this tank's not going to have all of that. And yes, a tank can be a command team. And I'll get to that in just a minute, show you kind of how to do the difference in that. But command teams are ranked from highest to lowest in order of their seniority or their ranking. So the highest rank you can get in a game is a higher command team. Below that will be a company command team. Below that is the second in command team, also called 2IC. And the final one is a platoon command team. And the main ones you're going to run into is the company command team, the second in command team, and the platoon command team. Company command team, and I got this one here for my USA Infantry. It's a little 1 there, so I know it's the first in command. He's in charge of your whole company. It'd be infantry, tanks, whatever's in your army that's on the table or not on the table. This is the one that's in command of it. This is the second in command. That's why I got a 2. So if you're running an infantry company, generally you're going to get that. It could also, in a company command team, can be in a tank if you're running a tank company. And how people, if I have my tanks running around, how are you going to know which one's my leader? So what people do is, their leader is generally the one that has a person out of the hatch. Whoa, put that back. Great thing about these tanks, when you buy them, they generally come with these magnets, so you can. So this is the command team. This is just part of the platoon. So that's generally how you tell your tank teams apart, which one's your leader, because it's important. Because if your leader gets taken out, your platoon or your company could be in trouble. And then infantry command team. So this would be leading. He would be in charge of like these riflemen here. He'll be running a little platoon. So that's what those are. So that's basically what I'm going to go over on command teams right now. It's just that they're in charge of either the whole company or down to a platoon unit. All right. Next, we're going to go on to the last section, which is, well, not the last section, but we're going to go down to warrior teams. Here's some examples of some warrior teams. And basically, these are going to be soldiers. I'm kind of taking some of this from the book. Soldiers who perform amazing feats, and they heroically fight against the odds, or they inspire leadership in desperate situations. So some of these can give rerolls to your units. Some are just generic leaders, and I'll get to that. But some are based upon real people. They can be any type of team. So if you notice, my first and second command here, they are warriors. And if this was a first or second in command, this would be a warrior. So that's kind of your generic. If you buy a first, second command, they're a warrior. Other ones, like I said, can be based upon real people, like this one here. I don't know if you can read it or not. Yeah, it probably didn't focus. This is Audie Murphy. So if I'm running a unit that allows Audie Murphy, I can put him in my army. There's some like Vittman, Patton, and you can add, if you're running the right army, they're allowed to be in your army list, and they can actually be on the battlefield. And they give special rules for those. Now, there can only be one type of each particular warrior in your army. So you can't have two Audie Murphys running around. You can't have two first in commands running around. You only have one. And they are generally not attached to a unit. So your platoon leader, which was like this guy with them leading them, he generally has to stay with them. Or he can take a few with him. I won't get into that now, but he is basically attached to them. Where he goes, they go. These guys can just go wherever they want, unless a rule says otherwise. So that's your warrior. They also have a special save, and I won't get into that right now. So that is your warriors. They're special units or people you could put in the game. They add special abilities or advantages to your army, and you can only have one of them, and they generally just go where you need them to go. So if you need them onto the right flank, you start moving them that way without having to take anybody with them. So that is the warrior teams. And the last one, finally, we're going to get to is independent teams. Alright, the last one is independent teams, and I have one example here because this is the one you're going to find most on the battlefield. So they're either senior commanders or artillery observers. And artillery observers is generally the one you're going to find on the battlefield. That's like these guys. So he's looking through his binoculars, and this guy's trying to help him. And then they call back for the artillery strikes to come in. They basically, kind of like warriors, they go wherever they want on the battlefield. They are not, if they're part of this artillery unit, they don't have to be with that artillery unit. They can be clear on the other flank. So even though they're part of that unit, they don't really hang around that unit. They try to get to a good advantage spot to see the enemy so they can get a clear shot for the artillery. Like up in a bell tower, up on the top of a hill. And again, it may be the artillery's on the left flank and this guy's completely on the right flank. And so that's your independent teams, and again, they can move wherever they want to on the battlefield, just like the warriors could. So that's all I'm going to cover right now on the different teams that are available for Flames of War. Get more detail again with these different teams and how they function when we get to the moving, shooting, assaulting, and things like that. So until next time. Have a good game.